desktop audio is overloading. Are we live? It says live. No, it says live. What do you think?
It's doubling up the music.
Is it doubling up the music? Desktop audio is overloading. Oh, so I bet I've got a window open. Hello, folks! Happy Sunday, friends, lovers. Let me find the window that's playing the video at the same time as we are broadcasting it. This is deja vu all over again. This is just like last Sunday. Which window is causing the echo? Folks, thank you for joining us. It's 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir. Kind of. It's late. We're over an hour late from our usual time. We'll see who's stuck it out. That sounds kind of nasty. Who stuck around? And let's see, view your channel. It does say that we're live. And 3 people are watching, although maybe that's just the windows that we've got open to monitor that.
Oh, let's take a look.
Let's put a couple announcements online. Let people know that we are live. Folks, we're just going to do this real quick. I know very kind of sloppy there for our usual Sunday show, but I'll tell you what. Those of you who are regulars, and we do appreciate those of you who are regulars, you know that we did a Christmas show, and then we did a post-Christmas show, a New Year's Eve show in front of the tree and the fireplace, and then a show off-site. It turns out we were up north in Palms and Harbor Beach, Michigan, and this was the first Sunday that we've had to be normal, to do a regular show, our regular Sunday show. And then what happened? Well, we were attending the Detroit Symphony Orchestra this afternoon at a 3 o'clock concert. You would think 3 o'clock concert would give you time to enjoy the show and get back to the studio in time for this live episode. Well, if you thought that, you would be wrong. We thought that, and I was certainly wrong. Sunday show, and then what happened? Oh, quick pause there. Let me get that link. And we'll tell the world that we are live real quick. Yes, here we go. Going live now.
Greg is here.
And the link. Control all, control copy. The secret keystrokes that make it all happen. Oh, what a crazy day. But let me tell you a joke. Oh man, what a week we have had. We have had tragedy, and we have had not just tragedy.
Just tragedy.
Yeah, no. It's been a crazy week. Some of you who have been following us online on the socials, or just who know us personally, you know this has been crazy times, difficult times, challenging times. In fact, our screen's even a little off center. I think I'm just gonna. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cheat and move it here electronically. There. That's there. Close enough. Good enough. Yeah, tragedy, not much comedy. Well, we did watch comedy drama, the show Shrinking. We'll mention that. Let me grab my show notes, which I did prepare for the show. I did actually do the, kind of the usual stuff that I always do, and get into that. Man, is this like the sloppiest show we've done in a long time?
Yes.
All right, today is Sunday, January 12th, 2025, the 12th day. The 12th day of this year, 2025, your best year yet. We're going to help you make that happen starting next week when we get our act together. No, we'll do some of that tonight, too. After today, 353 days remaining in this fine year. You've got 347 days until Christmas. Hope you've started your Christmas shopping. 292 days before Halloween, before somebody asks, because I know somebody who will. And on this date, I'm going to jump right to on this date. A couple quick ones. And then we'll tie them all together, and you'll be amazed and perplexed and confused, but also full of wisdom. On this date, January 12th. It is January 12th.
Yeah.
The day we were supposed to go to the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, and did. January 12th, 1904, Henry Ford sets a land speed record. 91.37 miles per hour. I know some of you drive the Autobahn, and you're like, 91 miles an hour? I do that every day. But in 1904, on a roadster with a wood frame and no body at all, yes, bare bones, and 91, and you know where he did it? We're in Motown, Lake St. Clair, just to the east, a little bit north of the city. He did it out on the lake because we don't have salt flats like some of you folks in the West do to set land speed records. No, it is frozen lake. Perfect. Perfect surface.
And you're talking about Henry Ford, right?
Henry Ford.
Yes.
Henry Ford sets the land speed record on this date, 1904. We love Henry Ford. Henry Ford is considered a complex character who we really need to analyze.
He's not.
And maybe there's room for that somewhere. But no, Henry Ford was the best. He was awesome. We could give a whole list. But no, I told you I'd keep it short. It is also January 12th. Happy Stick to Your New Year's Resolutions Day. This is the day in which people look again at their New Year's resolutions. And some of us give up and say, oh, crap, I didn't do it. Yeah. Some of us say, well, if I had any failures, I'd do what Thomas Edison did and all the great men, which is learn from what didn't work and keep working on what does work. Change your approach if you need to. Folks, if you've had New Year's resolutions for this year, like I have, health and fitness, went gangbusters, outrageously good, awesome for 5 days, and then life got interesting. No, it's time to start over again. So it is Stick to Your New Year's Resolutions Day. Some ideas for how to do that. Well, I posted a USA Today newspaper article on that, and there are some good ideas there, but I also want you, if you haven't already, go to thinkingdirections.com and visit Jayne Moroney's blog there. Her published blog post today was the Focus Sprint. And I love this. It reminded me of the Pomodoro technique. What you do is you say, okay, I've got this task I don't want to do. I do want to do it. It aligns with my values. It's a project I really love. I want this to happen, but I don't want to do the thing. One technique you can use is you can say, well, I'm going to do this thing for, well, Pomodoro would say 25 minutes. You can say 30 minutes to an hour and a half, whatever would give you a chunk of the task done, and then you can walk away from it. But you're going to spend that much on it. Read her essay on the Focus Sprint, and it will help you jumpstart some of those New Year's resolutions.
So we've got a question. Are the salt flats in Utah? I do believe they are. But Henry Ford, when he was trying to go up, 91 miles per hour, that was on a frozen lake.
Frozen lake, Lake St. Clair.
Lake St. Clair.
Yes, north of the Detroit River.
That is right.
Yes.
Yes.
Because the river north of there is the St. Clair River, and that takes you up to Port Huron, and that takes you to where we were last week when we broadcast live. And I know there were technical issues using that big 3 megabit upload pipe that we had. But yes, it was the frozen Lake St. Clair. 2 birthdays today. It's Jeff Bezos' birthday, and I think everybody should celebrate Jeff Bezos' birthday by buying themselves something on Amazon.com. Happy birthday, Jeff. He's only 61 years old. He started young, and he ran a business that lost money every year. Over and over again, he lost money, and he kept it up. He survived, the dot-com bust, where all of these companies that were going to be really great, like Pets.com, just obvious ones that were going to be total successes, completely blew up. Bezos lost money year after year after year and convinced investors, no, we're selling more and more every year. We're going to make money someday. Eventually he did. Now he's a gazillionaire. So happy birthday, Jeff Bezos.
I remember when Amazon came out and they were like, oh, he's selling books online. You can't go, that's stupid. You want to go to a bookstore to actually look through the book and see if you really want to buy it.
You're going to buy a book without being able to look at it?
And actually feel it and how heavy it is.
Skim it a little bit, make sure you're really interested.
Right.
Nobody's going to do that. Now, of course, the funny thing, this is 2025. We're living in the future. It's 2025. Do you buy books on Amazon? Do you buy books at all? It was a bookstore. Now it's an everything store.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other birthday today is Mel C. Melanie Chisholm.
Oh, is that Scary Spice?
That's Sporty Spice.
Oh,
You're
Sporty
close.
Spice.
Yes. Mel B, I think, was Scary. No, that was Baby Spice. Which one was Old Spice? Folks will tell us in the chat. But it is Melanie Chisholm, Mel C's birthday. And Spice Girls, it's funny because, and I love pointing this out, Spice Girls were part of the Lisa Frank age. It's so easy to think the 1990s were a total wasted decade. All they produced was grunge. But no, the 90s gave us the Spice Girls and 100 wonderful other things besides.
Yeah.
So thank you,
It
Mel
wasn't-
C.
Yeah, it wasn't all bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she inspired people to live large and get in shape because she was the sporty one. And they just had a great time, and people should have a great time more often. In fact, it's kind of our topic. I'm having a great time with Tetley Tea.
Oh, that's
British
really good.
blend. Look at that.
That's great.
It says British blend. Incidentally, the box is empty. I used the last tea bag just now. But it's made in India. Well, our UK friends know the link between India and Britain, and I won't get into the politically incorrect story behind that. But it is Tea Day. It's Happy Tea Day, so I'm always drinking coffee during the show. I'm not drinking coffee today. This is black tea.
Here, I'll have some of that.
A bit of sugar in there, but
Ooh.
no cream, which sounds silly to everybody in America, because in America you don't put cream in tea. But in the UK they do.
I do. I put cream in tea.
You put cream in tea.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're in America, right?
Uh-huh.
That blows my mind.
So, yeah. So
Yeah.
we've got some comments here. Chandler loves the Spice Girls movie. I remember the Spice Girls movie.
We got to watch that again.
We should watch it again.
We haven't watched that. We might have seen it more than once because my daughter was young at the time, but
Yeah.
we haven't seen it since it came out or around then.
Yeah, and I
If
guess
Chandler loves the movie, then we got to see it.
I guess there's a Mel C song with Bryan Adams. I'm not familiar with that, actually.
I looked her up, and she did several duets and did solo work after the Spice Girls wrapped up. I couldn't tell you the particulars, but yes, she went on to continue her career.
Yeah, Baby Spice is Emma Bunton. I remember her, I think.
Yep.
And let's see here.
Somebody says something's wrong with grunge. Nothing is wrong with grunge, other than the way that it displaced just basic good time hard rock. I would have nothing against grunge, except it really got hard to find good plain rock music for a while.
Well, it was just so I was punk rocker in the late 80s, and I still am. And
you had to see grunge give way to punk pop, didn't you?
Yeah, that was not cool. Not cool, man. No. I mean,
somebody else in the chat's going to say, "You got a problem with Blink 182?"
Yes, I do. But actually, I do like Everclear. I really appreciated them. They couldn't, because they were straight edge. And they actually took a stand. They weren't all just about, I don't know, whatever. My girlfriend broke up with me or whatever. And I mean, it's like country music at that point.
Well, America sucks. The world sucks. Society sucks. Everybody sucks. Everything sucks. I suck. I should do drugs.
But I'll tell
'cause
you,
life sucks.
In the 90s, late 80s, 90s, I mean, you had a lot of great bands.
Yeah,
You've got the Pixies. I think Husker Du was around still. But you had, I mean, even even the ones who broke in the mainstream, like Red Hot Chili Peppers, and and then you had your Pearl Jam, and then that kind of went into this strange area with this band Creed, and and then that kind of turned into Coldplay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's so much
I know what
great
I'm
music
talking
in the
about.
90s. You just had to be a little more selective.
Yeah, you did, and it was, it wasn't bad. It was a lot of good stuff out there. And
there still is.
There's nothing wrong with grunge per se. It's just some of it was a little bit too mainstream for me, anyway.
Yeah, Chandler says Taking Back Sunday and brand new were my pop punk bands. I don't know what brand new is.
Yeah,
But,
I don't know.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, and that led to, there were some pop punk bands that we liked. Hot Heat, you could kind of call that a little bit.
Hot Heat.
They
were good,
yeah,
they were like the best.
Yeah, and there was Jimmy Eat World. They were pretty good for a time there, and that was good.
Yeah.
And then you got into, one of our favorite bands, which is The Joy Formidable. But yeah, I mean, you continuously have good bands out there. You just don't always know where they are, and it's sometimes it's like it's hard to find good music because there's so much out there, which is kind of cool.
And it depends on what you're looking for. Depends on what you want, what you think good music is.
Right.
I said before, and I'll say it again, as a musician, I can take a song I don't like by a band I don't like, learn how to play it, and I will just love playing it because I love playing music and it's cool. And yet at the same time, I'm like, yeah, not my band, not my thing. So context is everything. Or if you're not into a particular kind of music, for example, we know Apollo Zeus loves country music. Actually, I think he's joking about that. But if you don't like country music and you go see like a movie, go see a movie with a country music setting.
Yeah.
And if you like the movie, you'll like the music, at least for the duration of watching the film. It's the same thing when I was a kid. I hated disco. And then I saw Saturday Night Fever, and I'm like, I am so into this.
Did you?
And
I didn't know this.
And it didn't make me into disco afterwards. But the point is, you can love something in the right setting, even if it's not your jam.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, absolutely, more power to you.
I was expecting as a 4-year-old in the late 70s to become a disco dancer. That didn't work out.
Yeah, Greg Lewis says Earl Grey Black.
Yes.
Is that a Star Trek reference? Or
I'm sure.
Well, Greg has been to our Glow, the Great Lakes Objectivists, and he knows that you drink Earl Grey, so I don't know.
Yeah.
He might be making more connections than we realize there.
Yeah, and Matthew gives us a little history about the Tetley Tea Company. They were founded in England, but they've been owned by an Indian-based Tata group, aside from which most black tea crop is grown in the Indian subcontinent. So that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, Chandler says, I put pop punk in quotes because I would say that's what I listened to. Maybe it would be called emo or scene. It's really hard to tell.
There are so many genre names. You know,
it's really hard to
as
tell.
As Billy Joel would advise us, it's still rock and roll to me.
Right.
So underwater.
Oh, wait. Tom says, were you at the Disco Sucks fiasco at the Comiskey Park in Chicago?
I was not at that one, but I did have a dread card. Some of you Motown folks will know what a dread card is. I know other cities had the same thing. It looked like a credit card. You carried it in your wallet, and you were a card-carrying member of, well, in the case of dread, it was Detroit rockers engaged in the abolition of disco.
Oh, that's right. It's right.
Yeah, that was a WRIF thing, local radio.
Yeah, and I guess it had a big bonfire and set fire to a whole bunch of disco albums.
Records.
Disco was so fun for me because even when I was a teenager, I'd go to thrift stores and I would find all these crazy albums. Hilarious stuff. I mean, it was just comedy gold, all of it, and it was so fun. But now I look back and, kind of see... there's a lot of really good history, musical history in disco, and I really appreciate it now. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Let me pop out my chat here. Oh, did we look and see if we were live on Facebook?
I think we are. Yes, we are.
Okay. It's amazing. All of that worked, even though it was well over an hour late.
Oh, yeah. And Linda's in Facebook. Hi, Linda.
Oh, cool.
Linda Cordier of Cordier.com.
Cordier.com.
And
serve all
go
of
there
your
and get some
art
good
needs.
art. Good art.
Yeah.
The best place to get great art. The best art, actually.
Yeah. And if you think you can't afford good art, look up Club Cordier on the website. You can set aside money and make it easy to buy good art.
Yeah, she has milk and sugar in her tea.
Wow.
Fancy.
Right. Tiny little tea leaves. Okay, very sweet. What are we listening to this week? I don't know. I can't think of anything I was listening to, but we were watching.
Oh, yeah.
Shrinking. The TV show Shrinking.
On Apple Plus or whatever. Apple TV Plus.
And we enjoyed it enough that we watched all of it over the course of, well, we'd watched some earlier, but call it a week or two. And so it was obviously good enough for a binge watch. Mm-hmm. A few episodes every night. But it wasn't Ted Lasso.
No, it's not Ted Lasso.
And you would think, why are you comparing it to Ted Lasso? And the answer is a lot of Ted Lasso fans will tell you, well, if you're tired of rewatching Ted Lasso over and over again, you've got to watch Shrinking. Some of the same production staff, one of the writers in common, and kind of similar fast-talking combination comedy and drama. and I liked it. Amy, you had a more mixed reaction than I did.
I liked it up to in the second season. I liked it up basically to the third to the last. There was a bit of a jump the shark moment for me, and it had nothing to do with sharks, or jumping, but but yeah, I'll just say this, that they have really good characters in the show, but the trajectory of the character for each one of them just it wasn't very fulfilling, because it ended up being spread too thin because they kept introducing more characters and they wanted to give them like equal time or something, and it was that was a roadblock for me. Well, but that's okay. I mean, it was still okay. It was worthwhile.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I kept my expectations right-sized, and so I enjoyed. And it's very well acted. They have they're very clever with the class. Actually, probably my least favorite actor in the whole thing was Jason Segel, the star of the show.
Yeah.
He was a little too much of what he was. But that said, Harrison Ford does a great job in it. He's old Harrison Ford, which incidentally, Linda Cordera of Quint Cordera Fine Arts says Harrison Ford lives here. So I did not know that Harrison Ford lived in Jackson, Wyoming.
Wow.
But that's pretty damn cool.
That is pretty darn cool.
I totally think he should come down to the gallery and get his place decked out.
Yeah, Steven asks, did you see the episode of Happy Days where Fonzie jumps the sharks? Yes, I do remember this.
I haven't seen it since it was aired. But I have seen like clips that show the shark jumping scene. But yeah.
Yeah, very interesting trope there.
Yeah, and if you go to the Tropes website, what is the Tropes website called? I forget now, because I don't go there that often. But it's all about tropes. So, for example, there's even in Shrinking, one thing that you don't get a lot of are tropes. But then there was a meet cute, and I'm like, they did a meet cute.
Yeah.
They've avoided a lot of the tropes, a lot of the cliches, but then they fell into it.
Yeah, there's
TV
tropes.org.
Yeah, that's what it is. Thank you. TVtropes.org. If you ever want to be a writer for Hollywood, or a writer in general, go to tvtropes.org, print out the list of tropes, cut them all into little pieces of paper, put them in an oversized salt shaker, pour them on a piece of paper, and you've got a script. Anyway, yes. It's fun to say, oh, somebody else noticed. Not just that film will have a Hollywood ending, but it will have one of these 12 specific kinds of Hollywood endings. So, yeah. Paulo just says, imagine Han Solo as your neighbor. One of the interesting things about character actors, they're called that because they tend to play the same character no matter what character they are playing as an actor. And Harrison Ford will always be Harrison Ford. He'll always be
I'd say so.
Han Solo.
I would say so.
Yeah. And it's great because it's a great style that he uses to,
Yeah, so Shrinking, it was pretty good. Good to binge.
Yeah. I would say it's good. Don't expect it to be as good as Ted Lasso.
Right.
But if you've right-sized your expectations, go ahead and watch it. You'll enjoy it.
If you get annoyed by annoying teenage daughters, don't watch it. No, I'm kidding.
I've seen a lot of annoying teenage daughters in film, and those teenage daughters weren't nearly as annoying as a lot of teenage daughters. Now, you were a teenage daughter.
Yeah, I was.
So you might be a little sensitive to, why the hell is she doing that? I wouldn't do that. Nobody should do that.
Sure.
Whereas I'm more judgmental of the teenage boys in the series
there you go.
who to me were entirely vapid
they
and
were
useless
vapid.
And not believable at all. But
no.
But they weren't the main characters in the show either.
But I mean, it's really hard to balance in a comedy melodrama the seriousness of it and the especially the redemption and just the growth of the characters in a serious way with all of the little comedy elements and the people who are just more comedic. But they kind of brought the people in who used to be just specifically for comedy, and then brought them over, kind of crossed that line of, okay, now they're in the melodrama, And it's just really hard to balance. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Hi.
I'm noticing that our faces have more character than usual. And it's because we're not using all the lighting we usually use. We did a real quick setup after getting home from the symphony, which was not just a symphony. Speaking of what are we watching this week, the Detroit Symphony Orchestra every year is doing an one of the releases of the Harry Potter film series. Last year we saw Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in Orchestra Hall. And this year it was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
Yes.
And they show the movie on a really, really big screen over the orchestra. And it's raised up so you can still see the orchestra. And then the orchestra plays the soundtrack. So live music. Most of you, I'm sure, have heard of that kind of thing. It was really good. It's also why we were late today. So, yes, definitely do see Shrinking if you like that kind of thing. Hot topics for the week. And what I really wanted to talk about, which I totally did not print up, so I'm going to have to look at my screen here. The preparation for this episode was enormous and completely scattered. So, stop me if you've heard this one. And somebody in the chat is going to be like, stop, capital letters. My therapist, see, we've been watching Shrinking. My therapist told me that a great way to let go of your anger is to write letters to people you hate and then burn them. I did that, and I feel much better, but now I'm wondering, do I keep the letters? Yes. I know right away my keyboard player out there is thinking of Moody Blues, letters I've written, never meaning to send. It's actually a great idea to write letters to people and then not send them. It kind of reminds me of my life on Facebook, where I've written a lot of posts and comments and never posted them or never posted the comments. It's a powerful thing, even though you feel that twinge, that temptation, that sense of, I just spent 20 minutes writing this comment, for example, this answer to this idiot, or this brilliantly inspiring thing, and only after 20 minutes do I realize that as much as I love what I wrote, it's really not the right answer, or it's not the answer I should post, or it's not what I want to put out there, or for some other reason, I should hold back. On my computer, my primary one, the one I use the most for writing, I've got a bunch of files that were originally Facebook posts, and they're just sitting there because they never got posted. But I love this idea of write a letter to somebody and then don't send it.
Right.
Because the purpose of writing is not just to communicate, but to think.
Yeah. Greg says, morning pages from the dining room table to the fire. I still have yet to put all my morning pages to the fire. They still exist, and I'm sure when I die, people will look at it and say, God, what a bitch.
Yes. And those of you who've watched Ted Lasso or Shrinking will probably know what morning pages are. If you don't, Julia Cameron wrote a book called The Artist's Way. And she has a lot of great techniques that artists or any creative people should follow. For example, the artist's date.
Yes.
Take yourself on a date as an artist, and specific things you should do. But one of the practices that she preaches, and that a lot of people, again, who aren't necessarily artists, have caught on to, are morning pages.
Yeah.
And this is morning. It's almost like a cross between brainstorming and meditation. You take a journal. It's journaling. You write down in a journal whatever's on your mind.
Yes.
No edits, free-flowing. Don't censor yourself at all.
Right.
You can't censor yourself. Only government can censor people. I love that argument. It is true. It's only censorship if it's government. It's just funny the way that people who say that say it.
I know.
Not usually in the most helpful manner. But yes, journaling. Morning pages is a great idea. If you've never looked up Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way, a lot of online resources, even if you don't read the whole workbook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be doing morning pages myself a lot more.
Yeah, you want to do more of that. Because you used to be like really steady and now you're unsteady or inconsistent.
So yeah, Greg says it's a 45-minute mind dump.
Yeah, Greg, I know you are like
exactly
a champion professional morning pages person.
That's awesome.
When I do that, it's probably 15 minutes max.
I mean,
Well, unless I really get into something.
yeah, I mean, I was doing it, and it took me 45 minutes at first, and then I started getting faster at it to where I got it down to about 3 pages. Half hour, 15, 20 minutes, somewhere around there. Occasionally I could do it in 15 minutes if it was really, really fast. But you just have to keep writing, and even if you don't know what you are thinking, you just say, I don't know what I'm thinking, I don't know what to write. And you write that down.
Yeah.
You just keep the pen going. Yeah. So.
Sorry, I got distracted because Tom says, the letter, the box tops. What would that have been in relation to?
Oh, the letter? What do you do with the letters?
Oh, what do you do with the letter? Right. Thank you. Thank you for making that connect. I was distracted because I actually just posted a video of myself playing the letter by the box tops.
Yeah.
I've also recorded the Joe Cocker style with Leon Russell on piano, although I wasn't on piano. There's one. Put that in the chat. The letter. Joe Cocker and Mad Dogs and Englishmen, or the box tops.
I would say the box tops.
Yes, that's true. I know you have told me that before. That
because it's got the cute little airplane noises. That's the one,
true.
right?
That's true.
It's adorable.
With Joe Cocker, you don't get the airplane sound effects, and you don't get the strings. With Joe Cocker, you get the gospel singers, background singers.
Yeah.
But you don't get strings.
Yeah.
And organ.
I like the organ.
The organ is good in the box tops version too. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, yes. So what have I been listening to? I don't know. What else do you have in your docket here before I talk about how I'm doing?
The reason why I gave, the story of the letter is because Amy and I are both going through some challenges this week. And Amy's challenges are substantial and reasonable, and mine are ridiculous and unreasonable. But psychology is psychology, and everybody hurts, and everybody's hurts matters.
Hurts.
Yeah.
I hate that song.
So my problem has been on the socials, because I'm encountering
you're focusing on the socials too.
Avalanche of negativity about the world and technology and big corporations and big pharma, but especially big government. And so I went online and wrote one of my usual. I said, spending every day thinking about evil, reading about it and writing about it and posting about it and obsessing about it and making sure everyone knows about every instance of evil going on in the world out there, letting it sink in deep, letting it be a substantial part of your worldview, versus staying ignorant and doing nothing. See, every time I tell folks, look, I get it, there's a lot of stuff we got to fight out there, but the world is far better than you realize. Things are far better than you realize. Our opportunities are more numerous than you realize. All the stats around the world on poverty and starvation and disease and hunger and progress, economics, all positive directions. We live in the best of all possible times. Things have never been better, and I am told, so we should stay ignorant and do nothing? And and then I post all the pictures of Amy and I at Tea Party rallies, or protesting against Obamacare, or Amy on the steps of the Capitol building telling the governor of Michigan to go fly a kite, and all of the things that we've done, in other words, to fight. We do fight.
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously false alternative.
Well, don't let the bastards get you down.
Don't let the bastards get... That's a good point. So, I would hope that nothing I say here, nothing that I've written online, nothing on my Substack implies that I advocate either spending all of your time complaining about the state of the world, as if complaining is like doing something about it, or being, Pollyanna is the wrong word, but being blind to the evils of the world. Obviously, I don't believe in either one of those. I'm not a give peace a chance, can't we all get along guy. What I'm calling for is the primacy of values. In other words, what matters is the good stuff. The bad stuff is the stuff you got to fight. You got to spend some time on it. You got to spend a little money. Support your local police. Buy insurance. Put locks on your doors. Write to your governators and your other Congress critters. Protest and vote. And if you are articulate, write online what you think about those things. But, to spend all of your time and all of your energy, and maybe not. Maybe that's not what people are doing. I might be wrong about all of that. It's entirely possible. Well, here, I'll pull up a post. I can read it from this. It's just one paragraph. And I said this back in 2014, and I've linked to it many times since then. I like to think that on Facebook or Twitter or X or whatever your platform of choice, I like to think that on Facebook, the folks who spend most of their time sharing negative stories about the president, it was Barack Obama at the time, or Congress, or Islam. You see, it sounds a little dated, doesn't it? We'll get back to that. Stories about corruption and cronyism, overregulation and abuse of power, police brutality, the rottenness of modern culture, the ideological destruction of modern science and education, the stupid and wicked things that people do or say. I like to think that on the platform, the folks who spend most of their time sharing those negative stories do so to get it out of their system. And they spend the rest of their non-Facebook time happily, earnestly, joyously pursuing their actual values. Yeah, I like to think that. And I got to acknowledge, maybe that's actually true. Maybe those kind of angry, bitter, sad sack. This does not include anybody in the chat right now, by the way. Anybody who listens to this show, I'm pretty sure you don't fall in that category, but if you're online at all, you know who I'm talking about. And there's a lot of it. I like to think that, yeah, those folks just use the internet to vent. And then they go out and they're attending the orchestra, going to the movie theater, going to sporting events, going to art museums, or just spending time with good people, the good people in their lives. I hope that's what's going on, but sometimes they make it hard to believe that that's what's going on. So that's why I've been a little down this week.
Well, everyone's on their own journey, including those people. And, I see that, actually there was a really good post by Stuart Margolis with regard to people who support Donald Trump, his policies, his charisma, his sexiness, his joie de vivre, and all of his virtues. I'm kidding. Totally. It's one of those things where, people don't really know what they're doing a lot of the time with regard to political situations and issues. And they do want catharsis, so they go on Facebook and then they complain about whatever it is. And I just hope that I think, well, one of my thoughts about this particular post was, I do hope, and I think a lot of people, a lot of objectivists who supported Donald Trump, for instance, they're gonna think about it, and it's sort of like putting it all into a crock pot. You just have to wait it out. And they'll come around and they'll be like, oh yeah, no, I'm actually against mass deportation. I'm actually against tariffs. I'm actually pro individual rights. I rediscovered individual rights. And now I'm going to go ahead and speak out against, this guy who I was really hoping will be a savior and turn the country around, make America great again. So I don't know. I have a little bit more optimism with regard to that, and I've seen it with more people. I don't know if it's just because I have better friends on my Facebook, but I've seen it. I've seen that attitude a little bit better. That that they are not happy with with who they voted for, and I just hope, again, whoever you vote for, the thing that you shouldn't hopefully be doing is giving into defeatism and cynicism. Or you can't fight City Hall, or, if I speak out or I vote, that's just one out of, billions and trillions. So, no, you need to live your values, understand the connection between your values and freedom, understand the connection between individual rights and your choices and your volition, and have things follow from there. Actually really, really take your values seriously enough to say, you know what? This political climate is not going to give me enough freedom for me to pursue what will make me happy, and it will not allow me to make the choices that I want to make. You've got to connect those two, and you've got to be personal with it. You can find catharsis all day long and blow smoke up your own butt. But, that's just catharsis. It's not going to get you anywhere, and it's not going to be a connection to reality. And it's not going to be rational. So, yeah, that's what I think about all of that.
Yes. It may be that I'm making the news mistake of negativity bias, of considering the negative, giving it more weight than the positive.
Yeah.
Sounds like a strange thing. I would be the last person to do that. But, sometimes you get 3 or 4, kindred spirits online, and then you have 1 or 2 real negative people, and you're like, oh man, there's so many negative people. Yeah. I get that. I do get that. I'll give a spoiler alert. For folks who haven't read the book Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, because...
Yeah, you need to read it.
Because what I was calling for, what I was trying to get people to do online, don't evade things that are wrong in the world and what you need to do about them. And don't fall into that mire, that muck, and make that 90% or more of what you think about and talk about and share. And the way I put it was, this is a call for the integration, for putting together Dagny Taggart and John Galt. Hey, if you know who Dagny Taggart and John Galt are, you got to be all about putting those two together, right? And what I mean is, consider the opening lines in part 3 of that book. We never had to take any of it seriously, did we? She whispered. No, we never had to. The guy answering her is the one guy who fought it all, more than anybody else in the book. But he's also the one who said, don't think of them now. Don't think of pain or danger or enemies. A moment longer than is necessary to fight them.
Yes.
Amy, you once said to me something that was, at the time, it was your version of that. You said, don't step in it, step over it.
Yes.
And the point that's made in the book is, sometimes you do have to fight. But then You're done fighting and you let it go. And, you're on the lookout for the next fight you've got to get in, but you don't live there. You don't fight all the time. You don't consider life to be a fight, a struggle. We never had to take any of it seriously. Doesn't mean that you don't take threats seriously in terms of fighting them. It means that you don't take it as metaphysical. You don't take it to heart. You don't take it as the sum and substance of life on earth. And that's what it kind of felt like. There were people saying, the reason I support the people I do politically, and I've seen this on the left and the right. Lately it's Trump, but that's not the point. The reason I support the people I do is because everything's gone to hell and only this person, these people, these policies, this side can save us. It's not true. And because it's not true, it's not rational. And because it's not rational, it's no way to live. But man, I've been feeling that.
Yeah. Well, I've been feeling a lot of things this week. As a matter of fact, I spent the entire week feeling things. They're mostly negative.
Hard times.
Hard times.
Some personal stuff.
There's a really good song I need to play for myself and really get into when I have the energy again. But it's a song by the Cro-Mags, and it's called Hard Times. It's a great song. Anyway, I should listen to that. But yeah. So I, gosh, how can I sum it up? I had a monster in my past that, this brother of mine. So my family consisted of, our single mom, me, and my brother, who is my half brother, but he was the one I grew up with. So by the time we were like, late teens, 20s, I cut that relationship out of my life because he turned into a monster. That's just, as people do. There was physical violence involved in this. There was, going and making police report. There was no apologies after the fact. There was a lot of, the monster was drinking all the time. A lot of bad choices on that, that the monster made, and so the last 30 years I've been, really trying my best to avoid this person, and really trying to avoid this person, and I have succeeded in so many ways. The last 30 years, I've really made a great life for myself. It's just filled with values and bunnies and happiness and flamenco dance and music and rock and roll and punk rock and bass playing and saxophone playing and all this stuff. And my stepdaughter and my chosen family and my friends, so many friends, great people around me. And so my monster died last Tuesday. And I was expecting it to be kind of like, oh, good. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, well, let's go on. But no, my subconscious integrating mechanism wanted to instead integrate.
Bring everything back up again.
Bring everything back up in all of its horrifying, visceral detail. Thanks, subconscious. And I welcomed it because, you know what? One of my things, it's one thing that should be on every business card that I ever owned is introspector. Like that's kind of my title, Amy Nasir, introspector. Because that's what I do.
That's the problem with being in touch with your feelings.
And and your thoughts and your emotions and how they integrate and where they come from and how they spiral together and just everything.
I know the people who watch this will appreciate growing up and people saying, hey, you think too much and you take everything too serious. People who talk like that don't say seriously.
Well, during this attack when I was 19, I grabbed two things. I grabbed my pillow because I had to get out of I had to get out of the house that I was in. I have to say that. My pillow, and the other thing I grabbed was Atlas Shrugged, my copy of Atlas Shrugged, my paperback copy of Atlas Shrugged. And I got out of that situation. So so there's more of the story. There's, it's that what they call complex grief thing. But I have a lot of moral clarity. I've been talking to a lot of really excellent people, friends and therapists, and watching really excellent videos on YouTube and, doing some research. I was very, very grateful to have a job that let me have some time off. And so yeah, I've just been doing introspecting, and a lot of introspecting, a lot of talking, a lot of like piecing puzzle pieces together, and it's been very helpful. But at the same time, it's kind of crappy. It's cruddy, and it makes you feel terrible. But I'm getting through it. I'll just say this: if you have, if you want to call it a narcissist or a monster or whatever it is in your life, remember that you always have the choice to get them out of your life. And it's really important that you do. I've been watching some good videos. There's, a lot of resources on YouTube for people who are dealing with narcissists. There's a therapist named Dr. Ramani. She, it's just Dr. and then Ramani, Ramani. And she has a lot of really good advice. And I thought about it a lot with this guy that I grew up with. He really, he had a hard time of it. I had a hard time of it too, growing up with a single mom. I was very fortunate that my mom was very good with me when I was young. And I think she was good with with him too. So but I've been thinking a lot about James Taggart, especially today, and the kind of epistemology that he chose to have. If you think about James Taggart, he's described as somebody whose he doesn't really understand his inner workings, his emotions, his thoughts, his feelings, where they come from. And it's just, when Ayn Rand is describing his mental process, it's just a fog-filled alley with a dead end. There's no integrations. There's no trying to piece things together. There's no trying to understand where your emotions come from. There's no real thinking involved. The guy, not poor James Taggart, but my God, the guy had no values. He had nothing. And it was so strange. And I'm like, why are people like that? Why do people choose to be that way? And in brief here, I'll just say, one, you have to believe basically two things. Number one, that your inner emotional workings are mysterious, that they cannot be figured out, and they are too painful to look at. You've got to really believe that. Number two, other people are the cause of your emotions. whether that be anger or self-worth. You go to other people to become validated and justified and built up, and you expect that from other people, usually the people that you're abusing. But other people are the cause of your emotions. Again, they're mysterious. Their emotions don't come from your thoughts, experiences, or values. They're just there, and then if it's really bad, they start blaming the world for their problems, and they consider themselves to be victims. And that's when criminality usually comes into play. But I don't know. Let me know what you think about that.
We've got a couple of comments in the chat.
Yeah.
Akira says, I had to cut my father out of my life last year. It took me a while to tell my grandfather that I didn't really care about having a relationship with my father. I can totally sympathize with that because my parents split up early. I didn't want anything to do with my father and didn't. No part in our lives at all. Even at 18, I was given the opportunity to meet him, as we all did when we became adults and were able to make those kind of choices. And it's like, I don't have any reason to want to know him. It turns out he did go on to have other kids after the split up, and they turned out great. So maybe he was not as bad a guy as we all assumed, but it didn't really matter by that point. There was just no reason to pursue that. And Greg says, poor Cheryl. Cheryl Brooks, I don't know, which is more heartbreaking, Cheryl or Tony the wet nurse?
Cheryl.
Cheryl? Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Because no, it was Cheryl is more heartbreaking. But I feel like I'm Cheryl who stayed at Dagny's that night, who trusted Dagny.
It's a good way to look at that.
Yeah.
So, folks, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for coming back and then sticking around for so long. Very much appreciated. Let me say this. I said in the show notes that we would confront evil. We absolutely need to confront evil. As I said before, a good percentage of your time should be spent on evil. I say 3%. That's my number. You should just decide in advance and stick to it. Don't let it like get its claws in you, and suddenly you who say, I only want to spend 5% of my time working on evil. Again, putting locks in the doors, buying insurance, supporting your local police, dealing with politicians, writing letters, all this stuff. And you might be different. There are people who do this for a living. Half of their time is spent, for example, editorializing, writing editorials. I don't mean being on Facebook spending half of your time complaining. I mean actually getting something done. If that's you, that's great. Or if you are a policeman, you may be spending half of your time confronting evil. And hopefully the other half is just doing more mundane things like helping little old ladies cross the street or writing traffic tickets or whatever you're doing to promote the public peace and individual rights. We do live in the best times ever. There was a fun post online. There's a group called History Cool Kids. You'll find me sharing it on my Facebook wall. You see 3 ratty, poor-looking little kids from the early 1900s. And the post starts out this way. It says, for a small amount of perspective at the moment, imagine that you were born in 1900. So when you're 14, World War I starts. And it ends on your 18th birthday with 22 million people killed. Later in the year, Spanish flu epidemic hits the planet and runs until you are 20. 50 million people die from it in these 2 years. When you're 29, the Great Depression begins. Unemployment hits 25%, and global GDP drops 27%. This runs until you're 33. The country nearly collapses, along with the world economy. When you turn 39, World War II starts. Okay, the post goes on this way and makes the point, perspective is amazing. The things that we have been through make today look, well, not great. There are real bad things going on right now. But perspective is powerful. My answer to this, here's my answer to this. I'll leave you with this. This is right on the mark. No, accepting the facts need not make us complacent. And, as reasonable people, we've got to accept the facts. And the fact is that we live in extraordinarily auspicious times. We are safer. We are healthier. We are more prosperous than ever before, with more options and more opportunities for success and flourishing than our grandfathers, our forefathers could have imagined. There's much that's wrong and much to fight. But far, far more important is what's right, and what's interesting, and what's empowering, and what's fun, and what's inspiring, and what is ennobling, and what is magnificent. We are surrounded by miracles, not least of which is ourselves. So yes, do take evil seriously in terms of fighting it.
Yeah.
But don't take it seriously as an indication of life. Don't let it matter in that way.
Yes. We're in the comments talking about bad people and how to deal with them. One of the things that had really helped me, and this is, I feel, very important, was reading the metaphysical versus the man-made. And I think you can find that in Philosophy Who Needs It, right?
Yes, in Philosophy Who Needs It.
And metaphysical versus the man-made.
Yeah.
There's a point at which a person can stop becoming man-made or self-made. They can become metaphysical. And I'm not talking when they die. That's another example. But when a person, and this is the way that I thought of it, and I use the word monster only to not say the word brother, because he did change. But I thought when I was 19, and I think I had read that essay, the metaphysical versus the man-made, and I realized that when somebody crosses the line and becomes so out of control and so physically violent, they may as well be an act of nature, or a boulder barreling down on you, or a tornado or a tsunami or whatever it may be. Just a natural disaster. Because that is their status at this point. One of the words that I always appreciated that Leonard Peikoff would use in those terms is non-cognitive. So in other words, you can't this person's no longer can be reasoned with. You've got to figure out at which point that person is now no longer within the realm of reason or cognition. And this happens for real. Even if that person goes on with their life and has a job and things like that, with you and your relationship to them, you're no longer dealing with, especially if it gets to be that point, you're no longer dealing with a human being.
Yeah, you're dealing with Stephen Mallory's drooling beast.
Yes.
The way I put it in the metaphysical versus the man-made, there are three extremely valuable and primary points that Ayn Rand makes. And I mention it because most people read it. I shouldn't say most people. Some people read it and get the first two, but they don't necessarily get the third. But Ayn Rand's very explicit about this. The first point is the metaphysical can't be judged. If a tornado is coming your way, you can't say, bad tornado, and stick around because you're not going to knuckle under that tornado. No, the metaphysical, nature, and even animals, they do what they do, and you have to accept that as facts. The second point that she makes, and some would say the most important point she makes, people aren't like that. People can choose. So when person does something that threatens or harms you, or that is destructive in some way, you don't say, oh, yeah, that's just the way it is. You say, I've got to judge that. That's morally wrong.
Right.
And regardless of, there may be circumstances that will affect your judgment. You know, they had motivation, they had a bad background, they felt coerced in some way, but you judged them.
Yes.
And the way in which you're going to react to that will be different than when a tornado is headed your way. You may decide to fight the person. You may decide to stand up to them. You may decide to take action and call the police. You may decide, point is, you deal with that as a bad person, not as an unfortunate circumstance. But the third point that Ayn Rand makes, and she's very explicit about this, and Amy, you just shared it too. Once somebody makes a choice and you have judged it, the results of that are now facts, and you have to do what you have to do about those facts.
Yeah.
If somebody threatens your life, you've got to protect yourself. You can't just stand there and say, no, it's wrong to threaten my life. You've actually got to treat what they've done now as facts. No, not metaphysical facts, but facts of reality.
Yeah, if somebody's physically threatening you, you don't start asking them, did you have a bad childhood? Is this why you're doing this? Did your mother not love you?
Well, there is that too.
You don't do that.
Yeah.
You escape or you fight. And yeah. So I'll just say, yeah, I have been through all of the worst parts of my life in this last week. And it's, you know, it's it's like muckiness concentrate.
Yeah. We may do a whole episode called Feelings Are Facts, which is a terrible title because it can be misunderstood in so many ways. But it would be my answer to like the Ben Shapiro types who say, facts don't care about your feelings. Well, that's true, and that is the metaphysical aspect of the metaphysical versus the man-made.
Yes.
But if you throw that out there, you run the risk of saying to people, you should repress, you should evade your feelings, you should ignore your feelings and just do what's right. Well, obviously, you shouldn't just follow your feelings blindly, but you also shouldn't ignore them blindly either. There's a reason you feel those things, and Amy, as you said, as an arch introspector, you got to figure that stuff out.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just going to stick around, and eventually you will find yourself doing the wrong thing. Whole different episode there. We're not going to do that right now. You've stuck around longer than expected. Y'all are the best. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Sorry that we ran late. Thanks
for listening to me and my weird problems for the week, which, since I'm introspecting and I'm talking to people about it, it's going to get a lot better, a lot faster. If I had just, repressed it or something crazy like that.
Yes. Incidentally, Tom in the chat says, Amy, even without Atlas Shrugged, I bet you would have come out of that situation okay. Well, she might have, but if Amy had never read Atlas Shrugged, she probably would never have met me. And that's a heartbreaking thought. So I'm not going to go any further with that. But thank you. That is a nice compliment.
Thank you.
Yes. Folks, thank you for joining us. Stephen Katz says, remember to Arrested Development, Faith is a Fact. That show's been recommended to me, and I've never gotten around to watching it. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it won't. For now, I will take your statement that faith is a fact on faith.
Sure.
So bad, so wrong. All right, folks, that's it. We're done. Sunday night here in Motown, Monday morning for some of you in Europe. You guys are the best. You are the best audience in podcasting. I'm not even going to do my wrap-up spiel. I'm just going to say thank you. Thank you for listening.